Well, race is not a static thing. It changes with the times. I think the Famine Irish, transatlantic Famine Irish in particular, offer a really good example of this. During the famine, they were regarded as a redundant population. Their lives not worth much. But when they cross the Atlantic and they enter the American racial state, that is the state that was, by the very law, defined citizenship in racial terms, then they become useful to that state. In fact, if you look at the history of the United States from the 19th century onwards, the Irish were instrumental in building the racial state in various ways. And it's interesting now, one of the arguments that I like to make is the difference between nationality and citizenship. The Irish, according to the immigration laws of 1790, were eligible for American citizenship. There was citizenship open to white persons. They fitted within that definition. They did encounter, because of their religion, particularly Irish Catholics during the famine, hostility from sort of the WASP elites and the Know Nothing Party and people like that. And what they were being excluded from was American nationality, and that, as opposed to the legal term of citizenship, nationality is a cultural term. And they had to earn American nationality in various ways, really by proving their worth to sort of white America. In various parts of the country, that process was more difficult, and in other parts, like for example in Boston, there was Boston was WASP central, if you like, for America. It had an established WASP elite. It had a very defined class system and sort of religious hierarchy. And so when the Famine Irish came in, it took them an awful long time really to get established and get, political power. I always remind people that, I think the first mayor of Boston, the first Irish immigrant, didn't happen until the 1880s, whereas in places like San Francisco, there was an Irish-born mayor, and the Irish police chief of San Francisco in 1849 was Irish-born, Malachi Fallon, and the mayor, first Irish mayor in San Francisco was in the 1860s, and so on. So the process of uniting citizenship and nationality, often varied according to your location. And as I say, in Massachusetts, it was particularly difficult for the Irish to break into political power, but they did, as we see in New York and Philadelphia and other places too. One of the ways, the American state itself and state institutions helped actually the Irish, become American nationals. As I say, unite American nationality and citizenship through the political process. We know through the Democratic Party, through the Catholic Church, which became an Irish immigrant church, but rapidly in the 19th century became an American Catholic Church, very much a part of the, promoting American patriotism, but also vitally through state apparatuses like the police, the fire departments, the U.S. Army, the military. The Irish were able to rise through the ranks without much hindrance, and through these instruments were able to sort of claim their Americanness and their whiteness, indeed. So that means, in police departments, vis-a-vis African Americans. I mean, the Irish policed African American communities in eastern cities. In San Francisco, it was the Chinese were at the mercy of Irish police forces. There was a famous Chinatown squad formed by the SFPD, which was led by almost entirely by Irish migrants or sons of migrants. They're sort of brutally policing Chinatown. One of the others, and we haven't really discussed it, hasn't been discussed an awful lot in Irish studies, is the Irish vis-a-vis settler colonialism. I am doing some work on the Irish Colonization Association at the minute, which was organized in Chicago, but there was also various different organizations like the Immigration Bureau in St. Paul in the 1870s that attracted or went to the East Coast cities and tried to attract Irish Catholics, entice them away from Boston and other eastern cities to the frontiers, to these colonies in Massachusetts. There were colonies in Kansas and Nebraska and so on. And this was land formed just within like a year or two previous was occupied by indigenous peoples who were violently removed through murder and internment and other means, were moved off the land, and many Irish who themselves were moved off their own land in Ireland were now were colonizing Indian, formerly sort of indigenous land in the sort of northwest frontier, and that's something that I think needs to be looked at more closely by scholarships and scholars in the future.